She cut you off. Not even a reason. No goodbye, just vanished. You tried to understand. You asked why. You stayed up at night, rewinding the last conversation in your head. Was it something you said? Something you didn't do? You keep checking your phone. Nothing. Then one day, there she is again. A hey stranger. A story view. A like. A DM. Suddenly she's interested again. But she's not coming back because she loves you. She's back because she's checking if she still owns you. This video will change how you think, act, and win forever. Because the truth is, she never left for love, and she's not returning for it either. Every man watching this has one thing in common. You've been misled, lied to, trained to believe that if you love hard enough, chase long enough, sacrifice deep enough, she'll choose you. But what if that's the reason you keep losing? Today, I'm handing you a code, not just any advice. A blueprint of power, clarity, and unshakable confidence based on ancient Stoic principles. The Stoic Relationship ebook is now available, finally released to the public, but only for a limited time. To preserve the purity of this wisdom, to keep it from being watered down. If you're tired of being blindsided, broken, and confused by modern women, you need this. Because what's in that book? It will rewire how you deal with women, emotions, power, pain, purpose, everything. Comment, "No more chasing" below to affirm your shift. And let's get into the truth. Number 1. She expects you to chase. She hurt you in a way you couldn't explain to anyone because the wound wasn't visible. It was inside you, bleeding quietly every night when the world went still, and the only sound you heard was her absence ringing louder than anything you'd ever known. It wasn't just that she left. It was how she left, without a goodbye, without explanation, like you were just some phase in her life that ended. One day she made you feel like you were her future, her everything, the man she'd waited for. And then she vanished, replaced by cold texts, delayed replies, and eventually nothing at all. You told yourself maybe she was just busy, maybe she needed space, maybe you did something wrong and needed to fix it. You replayed the last moments over and over, dissecting every word you said, every decision you made, trying to spot the crack that made her walk away, hoping if you found it, you could patch it, fix it, bring her back. But what you didn't realize was this. She expected you to react, not because she cared, because it gave her a sense of power. Her leaving wasn't confusion, it was calculation. She knew the silence would eat at you. She knew you'd sit there staring at your phone, waiting for her to come back, feeling like a prisoner in your own thoughts, haunted by questions with no answers. She knew the pain would break your rhythm, would steal your sleep, would make food taste like nothing, and time feel endless. And she knew you'd try to fix it. She didn't need to block you because she knew you weren't going anywhere. She knew your loyalty was stronger than her betrayal. She knew your heart would hold her memory hostage long after she left. That's why she expected you to chase, because she saw how much you cared, how much of yourself you gave. And she took that love, not to nourish it, but to measure it. She wanted to see if she still had control after hurting you. She needed to know that no matter what she did, no matter how much she disrespected you, you'd still be there, waiting. Because most men do. Most men get hurt and then become addicted to the hope of reconciliation. They convince themselves that if they just say the right words, if they just wait long enough, she'll come back and see their worth. And she watches. Maybe not publicly, maybe not obviously, but she watches. Because even if she left you, she still wants to know she matters to you. That's why she keeps the door slightly open. That's why she throws breadcrumbs, random likes, story views, comments from fake accounts. She's not checking in because she cares. She's checking in to see if you're still broken, still reachable, still weak. And the moment you take the bait, reply to a vague text, react to a cryptic story, post something emotional, she knows. She knows she's still in your head. And in that moment, she wins. Because it's not about love anymore. It's about control. It's about knowing she can disappear from your life, hurt you deeply, and still come back whenever she wants and find the door open. That's what most men never understand. You think chasing proves you care. She sees it as proof that she owns your emotions. And when you chase, when you beg, when you reach out first, you don't just hand her your dignity. You confirm her power. You validate her decision to leave, and you make it easier for her to do it again. But when you don't chase, when you let the silence speak, not out of strategy, but because you've accepted the truth, everything changes. She starts to question her control. She starts to feel something she never expected, uncertainty. That doubt starts to grow the moment you stop checking in, the moment you disappear from her radar. When she can't feel your presence anymore, she starts wondering if she misjudged you, if maybe you were stronger than she thought. And that fear, that's what brings her back. But here's the truth. By the time she circles back, the man she knew is gone. You've changed. You've rebuilt yourself, not to get her back, but to get yourself back. You stopped trying to understand her and started understanding yourself. You realized that the man who chases is the man who remains stuck, the man who lets go. He evolves. He becomes dangerous, not to others, but to everything that once broke him. He becomes focused, clear, unshakable. He learns that his value was never dependent on her recognition. It was always in him, and that changes everything. Because now, when she tries to return, she's not met with a broken man begging for closure. She's met with silence, not the kind that hopes, but the kind that moved on. She's met with peace, not the kind that waits, but the kind that doesn't need answers anymore. She's met with growth, not the kind that seeks validation, but the kind that built itself without her. That's when she realizes the truth she tried to ignore. She didn't just lose a man, she lost a future she can never recreate. Because the new you, he doesn't chase, he builds, he leads, he lives. And if she ever wanted a place in your life again, she'd have to earn it in a way she never did before. But chances are she never will, because the man you've become doesn't wait for anyone to see his worth. He knows it. And that's why she never truly let you go. Because deep down, she knew that once you did, there would be no coming back. Not because you hate her, but because you finally love yourself more than the memory of what you thought you had. Number 2, your detachment destroys her control. You used to wake up wondering if she had texted back, hoping maybe she had a change of heart overnight, that maybe she realized the pain she caused and came back with an apology. But every morning you faced the same emptiness, the kind that weighed on your chest before you even got out of bed, because it wasn't just the absence of her message that hurt. It was the absence of who you were when you were with her. She used to make you feel alive, like you were seen in a world that often passed you by. But what you didn't realize then is that what she gave you wasn't real affection. It was temporary warmth designed to keep you attached. And the moment you got used to it, the moment you let it matter too much, she took it away, leaving you chasing something that no longer existed. She didn't just disappear from your life. She abandoned the version of herself that made you fall in love in the first place. And in doing so, she forced you into a war within yourself, one where every part of you that believed in loyalty, honesty, and love got shattered and questioned and reassembled again, only now with sharper edges. You see, when you stopped chasing, you didn't just take away your presence, you took away the certainty she had about herself. Because while you were busy blaming yourself, while you were dissecting your every word and wondering if you were too much or not enough, she was watching you suffer quietly, knowing deep down that the longer you stayed there, the easier it was for her to believe she still mattered. She didn't need to say anything. She just needed you to feel her absence so deeply that it rewired your identity. And that's exactly what it did. You stopped laughing like you used to. You stopped reaching out to friends. You lost focus. You became someone you didn't recognize anymore, all because you believed the only way to feel whole again was to get her back. But there comes a moment. Maybe it's late at night. Maybe it's when you're walking past the place you two used to meet, when something inside you breaks, not the kind of break that leaves you shattered, but the kind that cracks the illusion wide open, and suddenly you realize she never deserved the loyalty you gave her. That realization hits hard. It's sobering. It's brutal. And it's also the moment you start pulling yourself back together. Not for her, not to prove anything to anyone, but because you finally understand that the pain she caused was never about you being unworthy. It was about her being incapable of valuing what she didn't have to earn. And from that moment on, your energy changes. You stop responding, not because you're playing games, but because you're done participating in one. You stop caring what she thinks, not out of bitterness, but because you're finally prioritizing your own peace over her validation. And that's when everything flips. That's when she feels the shift. Not through words, not through some grand gesture, but through the void she never thought you'd be strong enough to create. She checks her phone and sees nothing. She posts to get a reaction and gets none. She waits for you to reach out and realizes she's waiting for someone who isn't coming back. That's when the panic sets in, not because she loves you, but because the part of her that fed off your reaction is starving. She starts wondering if you've met someone else, if you've moved on, if you've finally become the man she pretended to want but couldn't handle. And here's what no one tells you. Women don't regret losing the man who begged. They regret losing the man who evolved, the man who used her betrayal as fuel, the man who stopped needing closure and started closing chapters himself, the man who built a life so fulfilling that her memory didn't just fade, it got buried under new achievements, new peace, and a new level of self-respect that she couldn't touch anymore. That's who you are now. Not someone who was abandoned, but someone who was freed. Because the truth is, she never controlled you. She just knew how to manipulate the part of you that didn't know your own worth. But that part of you is dead now, replaced by the part that understands value doesn't chase. Value doesn't beg. Value doesn't need to explain itself to someone who made the decision to walk away. And that's what destroys her. Not your silence, but the version of you she can no longer reach, no longer predict, no longer control. You've become unpredictable, unbothered, unavailable in the best possible way. And while she may never say it, while she may pretend to have moved on, every fake smile, every forced laugh, every new guy she posts about is her way of trying to reclaim the attention she used to get from you. But it's gone now. You're gone now. And not because she broke you, but because you rebuilt yourself stronger than she ever expected. That's the power of walking away without looking back. Not to teach her a lesson, but to finally learn yours. And that lesson is this. Any woman who can hurt you and sleep at night never deserved a place in your heart to begin with. She was a test, and you passed. Because you didn't just survive the betrayal, you transcended it, and in doing so, you became the man she'll never forget, and never have again. Number 3, she feeds on your reactions. She didn't need to scream to know she had you. She only had to disappear and watch how fast you unraveled, how quickly your thoughts spiraled the moment she withheld what you used to think was affection. Because it was never about affection. It was about control, about creating dependency so quiet you mistook it for love, so subtle that every time she withdrew, your instinct wasn't to let her go, but to chase, to explain, to fix. And every time you did, You fed her more power than you ever realized, not because you were weak, but because she convinced you that your strength lay in earning her back. And so you did what every man does when he believes his worth is tied to someone else's recognition. You reacted, you tried harder, you gave more, and with every desperate attempt to make her see your value, she took another piece of it from you, until the man who once stood tall was now shrinking himself to fit the mold of someone she would choose again. But she wasn't choosing. She was testing how far you'd go, how much you'd tolerate, how deeply she could wound you and still find you waiting with open arms. And when she cried and you comforted her, even after she was the one who left, she didn't see compassion. She saw leverage. When you forgave her lies because you missed her too much to stay angry, she didn't see grace. She saw weakness. Because in her world, every reaction is a signal that she still matters, that she still holds space in your mind. And the more she sees it, the less she respects you, because you've now taught her that no matter what she does, you'll always be available. And availability to someone who thrives on power is a green light to exploit it. And so she pulls back. You chase, she cries. You comfort, she disappears. You panic, she posts another man. You watch and hurt quietly, and the cycle continues, until one day you realize you're not even reacting because you care anymore. You're reacting because it's the only way you feel connected to her, even if the connection is made of pain. And that's when you have to wake up. Because this isn't love. This isn't loyalty. This isn't what relationships were meant to be. This is manipulation masked as chemistry. And the only way to escape it isn't through revenge or begging or trying to explain yourself one last time. It's through reclaiming your emotions. Because when you stop reacting, you take away her fuel. You strip the game of its stakes. You remove the drama she relied on to feel significant. And that's when you see her unravel, because she never had control over you, only over your reactions. And now that she doesn't know what you're thinking, doesn't know how you feel, doesn't see you reaching, watching, checking, she starts to panic, not because she loves you, but because the script isn't playing out the way it's supposed to, because the man she thought she could pull like a puppet now sits calmly in his power, no longer running to explain, no longer explaining to be chosen. And that absence of response, that lack of reaction, it terrifies her, because now she's the one waiting, she's the one overthinking, she's the one replaying conversations. And the irony of it all is that the very thing she used to measure her control has now become the source of her confusion. And while you've stepped into clarity, she's left in the maze she built for you, realizing far too late that when a man stops reacting, it's not because he's playing games, it's because he's learned the truth. And the truth is this: when someone only feels powerful by watching you fall apart, the greatest resistance isn't to attack, it's to rise so silently they no longer recognize the man who once made them feel important. And once you've reached that place, there's no going back, not because you hate her, but because you've outgrown the version of you who needed her approval to feel like a man. And in that transformation, you've given yourself the only thing that matters: freedom. Number 4. Your detachment destroys her ego. There's a part of her she doesn't talk about, the part that gets quiet when she sees you living without her, not pretending to move on, but actually doing it, building something real, smiling in ways that don't include her name anymore, and it eats at her, not because she loves you, but because your joy no longer includes her. And that's something her ego never prepared for, because you have to understand, when she left, she wasn't expecting you to heal. She was expecting you to wait, to linger, to mourn her presence in such visible ways that even in her absence, she'd still feel like the center of your world, because that's how she's used to it going. That's what she counted on. But what she never expected was the man who decided he wasn't going to be defined by someone who couldn't stay. The man who stopped waiting and started building, who turned his heartbreak into hunger, Not for her, but for himself, for his life, for his purpose. And when she saw that, when she scrolled past your photos and saw that light in your eyes again, one she didn't put there, she started to feel something she couldn't control. Because up until then, your worth to her wasn't measured by your happiness. It was measured by her ability to affect it. And now that she couldn't, now that your world was spinning just fine without her, it shattered the image she had of herself. Because she believed she was the one you needed to become whole. And yet here you were, laughing, leveling up, locked in. And every post, every achievement, every visible step forward became a reflection she couldn't avoid. A reminder that she wasn't irreplaceable. And it's that realization that cuts the deepest. Not that you've found someone new, not that you've moved on, but that you never needed her to begin with. That the love you gave her came from a place of abundance, not dependence. And when that love was no longer given, she realized she hadn't just lost a man. She'd lost a mirror that once made her feel more beautiful, more worthy, more desired than she truly believed she was. And without that reflection, she's left facing herself. And for someone who relied on external validation to feel whole, that's the most painful confrontation of all. And that's why your detachment doesn't just confuse her. It destroys the very narrative she built about her value, because now she has to wonder if every man will eventually outgrow her. If every man who once clung tightly will one day look at her like a lesson instead of a loss. And that terrifies her, because what your healing exposed wasn't just her inability to hold a good man. It exposed her inability to recognize one when she had him. And in a world where everyone's pretending to move on, your growth stands out. Because you're not pretending, you're not posting for attention, you're not building just to prove a point. You're becoming something unshakable. And she sees that. And whether she admits it or not, she compares it to every other man who comes after you. Men who may have the looks, the charm, the games, but lack the depth, the fire, the purpose that now defines you. And no matter how far she runs, no matter how loud she laughs, there's a quiet part of her that remembers the man who could have been her forever. And that part doesn't go away, because you're not just another ex. You're the one she couldn't break, the one who didn't need her to glow, the one who walked away not to hurt her, but to heal, and in doing so became untouchable, not because you set out to hurt her ego, but because your transformation made it impossible for her to fit into your new life without becoming someone new herself. And that's the part she can't fake, can't manipulate, can't control. And it's in that space, that unfamiliar discomfort, that your absence echoes louder than your presence ever did. Number 5, she comes back to test, not love. She doesn't come back because she woke up one day and realized how much she loves you. She doesn't return because she finally saw your worth and wants to right her wrongs. No, she comes back because something in her life got quiet. Something that used to keep her distracted no longer satisfies her. Maybe the new guy she thought was better didn't treat her like you did. Maybe the excitement she chased turned out to be hollow. Maybe the world didn't applaud her for leaving you like she imagined it would. Maybe she started to miss the way you cared too deeply, the way you forgave too quickly, the way you were always just one message away from crawling back, even when you were the one bleeding. And when she reaches out again, it's never direct. It's never, "I'm sorry." It's never, "I was wrong." It's, "Hey, how have you been?" Or, "I saw something that reminded me of you." But what she's really saying is, "Do I still have access to you?" Because that's what she's testing. Not your heart, not your healing, not your growth. She's testing if the version of you who was willing to break himself just to make her happy is still alive somewhere. And every time you respond with excitement, every time you give her a piece of you without making her earn it, you confirm that he is. You show her that no matter what she did, you're still available. And that gives her everything she came for. Not closure, not connection, but confirmation. Confirmation that she still matters. that she can still interrupt your peace with a 5-word message, that she can still control the rhythm of your heart with the smallest bit of attention, and the moment she sees that, the moment she knows she still has you, she loses interest all over again, because she was never coming back to rebuild what she broke. She was coming back to see if it was still broken. And when you react the way she expects, when you drop everything for her again, when you fall right back into her timeline like no pain ever happened, she realizes she still has power, and when she has power, she doesn't respect it. She exploits it, and then she leaves again, only this time it cuts deeper, because now you have no illusion to hide behind. Now you can't tell yourself she didn't know how much she meant to you. Now you know that she knew, and she still used it, still twisted it, still made you doubt your own progress. And that's when the pain starts to turn to anger, not at her, but at yourself, for forgetting the nights you couldn't sleep, for forgetting the days where your mind wouldn't shut off, for forgetting how long it took you to put your heart back together piece by piece. And if you're not careful, you start to spiral again. You start to chase the version of her that never really existed, the version you created in your mind to survive the emptiness she left behind. But if you've done the work, if you've faced the truth, if you've walked through your own fire to reach a place of peace, you won't react. Not because you're playing games, but because you've finally learned the lesson. People don't return because they miss you. They return because they miss how you made them feel about themselves. And if how you made them feel was rooted in giving while they only took, then their return isn't a compliment. It's a threat to everything you've built since they left. And the only way to protect that progress is to stand firm, to let their message go unanswered, to trust that real love doesn't test your loyalty through pain, and to remember that the version of you who answered every time she called was a version that hadn't yet learned the most powerful thing a man can do is not wait for closure from someone who never deserved his opening in the first place. Number 6. Why you should never take her back. You think taking her back is the beginning of something beautiful. You convince yourself that maybe this time will be different, that maybe now she's seen the light, understood the damage, realized who you were all along. But what you fail to understand is that anyone who can cause you that level of pain and watch you suffer, knowing they were the reason, and still not choose to stay and fight for what they broke, is not someone who deserves a second chance at your heart. Because taking her back doesn't erase the betrayal. It doesn't rewrite the past. It doesn't remove the memory of the nights you cried yourself to sleep, wondering why you weren't enough. The days you couldn't focus, because every thought led back to her walking away. It doesn't remove the image of her being with someone else while you were trying to fix what she had already decided to abandon. And when you let her back in, you're not healing. You're resetting the clock on your own destruction. You're handing your heart back to the person who dropped it the first time and hoping they've learned how to hold it. But people don't change because they get bored. They don't grow because they feel lonely. They don't suddenly develop respect because they lost you. Real change comes from deep regret, from true accountability, from a desire to become better, even if it means never having access to you again. And if she hasn't shown that, if she hasn't said the words no one forced her to say, if she hasn't taken the time to truly understand the damage she caused and why she caused it, then she's not coming back to build. She's coming back to be comfortable, and you are not a comfort zone. You are not a fallback. You are not a soft landing for someone who made you feel like you weren't enough when you gave her your everything. Because the moment you allow her back without that transformation, without that clarity, you teach her that her actions have no consequences, that she can hurt, leave, ignore, and return to the same seat at your table without ever bringing anything to offer. And what you're really doing is betraying yourself, betraying the man who fought through the heartbreak, who stayed silent when he wanted to scream, who stayed strong when every part of him wanted to break. The man who climbed out of the hole she left him in and started building something that had nothing to do with her anymore. And when you take her back, you tear all of that down, not for love, but for the memory of what love used to feel like. And that memory is a lie, because if it was real, she wouldn't have let you suffer alone. She wouldn't have vanished when you needed her the most. She wouldn't have waited until she got bored or lonely to see your worth again. And the hardest truth you'll ever have to accept is this: the version of her you're hoping to rebuild with only exists in your imagination. And every time you try to make her fit that fantasy, you're delaying your own healing. You're postponing the arrival of the woman who would never make you feel replaceable, and you're keeping yourself trapped in a story that already ended. So when she comes back, let her see a man she doesn't recognize anymore, a man who doesn't need her apology, a man who doesn't need closure, a man who doesn't want anything from someone who taught him what it feels like to be disposable. And if there's any justice in the universe, the look in your eyes when you no longer want her will haunt her far more than your begging ever did. Not because you hate her, but because she'll know that her biggest loss wasn't the man who waited. It was the man who finally walked away. And if you've made it this far, it means something inside you refuses to live another day on your knees, chasing people who never deserved to be in your future. And that voice inside you, don't ignore it. Because the truth is, most men never escape the trap. Most stay stuck, begging for the same love that broke them, losing years they'll never get back. But not you, not anymore. You've been given the blueprint. Now it's time to build. So if this spoke to something deep in you, if it felt like I was talking directly to your life, then don't just leave with inspiration, leave with a weapon. The Stoic relationship blueprint for men is more than a guide. It's a transformation. It's the handbook I wish I had when I was broken, bleeding, and begging. It's raw, it's real, and it's only available for a short time to those who are ready to finally stop chasing and start leading. The link is pinned in the comments. Get it now before it disappears. Like the video, subscribe, share it with another man before he wastes another year on someone who never truly saw him. Comment below. I choose me now. Let the world know. Let you know. Because the longer you wait to claim your worth, the longer she wins. And we're done letting her win.